The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting a harsh glow across the consultation room. I stare at the transplant coordinator, Dr. Walsh, as she slides the final consent form toward me. My hand trembles as I reach for the pen. "As I mentioned, Miss Turner, there are significant risks," she says, her voice measured and clinical. "Post-operative pain, infection, potential long-term complications, and there's always the small chance of rejection, even with a good match." I nod, scanning the form's dense paragraphs. 2 floors above us, Dad waits in pre-op, already gowned and prepped. The image of him, skin sallow against the white hospital sheets, flashes through my mind. He'd looked so small yesterday, nothing like the broad-shouldered man who once carried me on his shoulders at county fairs. I tap the pen against the paper, remembering Amanda's tearful excuses and Clay's carefully constructed medical disqualification. When it mattered most, they folded like cheap lawn chairs. "Doctor." Walsh watches me, her expression neutral but her eyes kind. "Miss Turner, I need to be absolutely clear. Once we begin, there's no going back. Are you absolutely certain about this?" The question hangs in the air between us. Outside the window, a spring thunderstorm is building, dark clouds mirroring the weight in my chest. I take a deep breath and sign my name. "He's my father," I say, my voice steadier than I expect. "I'll do whatever it takes." 3 weeks ago, Mom called at 2 a.m. I'd been coding, lost in the familiar rhythm of problem-solving, when her ringtone shattered my concentration. "Kira?" she said, her voice cracking. "The doctor says your father won't survive another month without a transplant. His kidneys are failing faster than they expected." The family meeting 2 days later still burns in my memory. We gathered around the dining table where we'd celebrated countless Thanksgivings and Christmases, now transformed into a war room. "I can't," Amanda said, dabbing at her eyes. "We're trying for a baby. The hormones, the procedures, my doctor says the stress of surgery could ruin everything." Clay stared at his hands. "My blood pressure's too high. They'd never clear me." I sat silent, watching the familiar scene unfold. They looked to me, as they always had. The family fixer, the responsible one, the one who never said no. At the present, I wake to the steady beep of monitors. My throat feels scraped raw from the breathing tube, and a dull throb pulses beneath the bandages on my left side. Through the haze of painkillers, I see Mom sitting beside my bed, her eyes red-rimmed. "There she is," she whispers, taking my hand. Her smile wobbles. "You've always been our rock, Kira. Always." I try to speak, but manage only a rasp. She holds a straw to my lips, and the cool water is sweeter than anything I've tasted. Later, they wheel me past Dad's room. He's sitting up, his color already better than it's been in months. When he sees me, tears well in his eyes. "Sweetheart," he says, reaching for my hand as they pause my gurney. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." The surgeon stops by that evening, all smiles. "Your father's numbers are improving already. Your kidney is performing beautifully." I nod, swallowing against the pain that spikes with each breath. He checks my chart, making notes. "And how's your pain? On a scale of 1 to 10? 4. I lie. It's closer to 7. 2 days later, I move into my parents' guest room. The familiar blue walls and faded horse ribbons from my teenage years remain unchanged, like stepping back in time. I set up a makeshift office on the desk, my laptop and monitor looking out of place among the remnants of my youth. "Now, don't you worry about your father," Mom says, fluffing pillows behind me. "I'll handle his medications. You just focus on getting your strength back." But by evening, I'm the one checking Dad's temperature and helping him to the bathroom while Mom naps, exhausted from the hospital vigil. He leans heavily on my arm, wincing with each step. "Shouldn't you be resting?" he asks. "I'm fine," I say automatically. My boss calls the next morning. "Take all the time you need," he says, but his tone carries an unspoken deadline. The team can cover for now, but that Henderson project. "I'll remote in starting from next week, I promise," calculating the unpaid leave days I have left. Denver and my apartment feel a world away. The phone rings again as I'm helping Dad with his lunch. The hospital billing department. I step into the hallway, pressing the phone to my ear. "Miss Turner, we're calling about your portion of the transplant costs," the woman says. "Your insurance has processed their payment, but there's a significant remaining balance." I lean against the wall, sudden dizziness washing over me. As the woman details figures and payment plans, I stare at the family photos lining the hallway. Clay's graduation, Amanda's wedding, Dad beaming proudly in both. My software engineering degree ceremony is noticeably absent. I touch my side where the new scar throbs beneath my shirt, wondering what exactly I've given away. The morning sun filters through the guest room blinds as I adjust my position in bed, wincing at the pull of stitches along my side. 2 weeks since the surgery, and the pain remains a constant companion. I've learned to move deliberately, to breathe through the sharper moments. From down the hall, my father's voice drifts through the quiet house. He sounds stronger today, animated in a way I haven't heard since before his diagnosis. Curious, I ease myself from the bed and pad toward his study. My steps whisper soft against the carpet. We'll keep everything as we discussed before the surgery, Dad says, his tone businesslike. Clay gets the house in business shares. Amanda gets the trust fund. Kira doesn't need anything she's already established. I freeze outside the partially open door, my breath catching painfully in my throat. Frank, are you certain? A second voice, Mr. Prentice, Dad's attorney of 30 years. Given recent circumstances. Nothing's changed, Dad interrupts firmly. My daughter has a good job in Denver. Clay and Amanda need the security more than she does. The surgical incision along my side throbs violently as I stumble backward from the door. I press my palm against the wall to steady myself, a cold sweat breaking across my forehead. This wasn't some impulsive decision made under medication or stress. He had planned this before my surgery, before I gave him part of my body. I make it back to the guest room before the tears come. 3 nights later, Mom sets the dining table with the good china, declaring it time for a proper family dinner now that Dad feels up to joining us. I take my usual place across from Clay, Amanda to my right, while Dad presides at the head of the table. Every movement sends ripples of discomfort through my side, but I notice nobody asking if I need the cushioned chair they've provided for Dad. I've been putting my affairs in order, Dad announces after Mom serves the roast beef. He looks directly at Clay while cutting his meat with practiced precision. Son, I think it's time you step in at Turner Construction. You need some direction, and the business could use your energy. Clay, whose 3 previous business ventures have failed spectacularly, brightens immediately. Really? That's... Wow, Dad. Amanda reaches for the salt, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. John and I are thinking about another round of IVF treatments with the inheritance, she says casually. Now that we know the timing, we can plan better. The words land like blows. Inheritance. Timing. They've all discussed this, planned around it. What about my portion? The question escapes before I can stop it. The table falls uncomfortably silent, forks pausing midair. Dad dabs his mouth with his napkin before answering. You've got your career, Kira. You don't need our help like they do. I stare at him. This man whose life I saved without hesitation. I see. The following morning, a thick envelope arrives from the hospital billing department. Inside, I find itemized statements totaling $38,742.16, my portion of the transplant costs, not covered by insurance. I spread the papers across the guest bed, scanning the details. Dad's premium insurance through his company covered his expenses completely. My basic plan through work left significant gaps. My phone buzzes with a text from my boss. Need confirmation on your return date. Henderson project deadline approaching. Team stretched thin. I set the phone down and pull up my bank account on my laptop. The unpaid leave has already eaten through most of my savings. 3 more weeks of recovery minimum before I can travel back to Denver. If I still have an apartment to return to. Later, while searching for a spare charger in the home office, I find a folder labeled Kira College Fund. Inside, bank statements show the account emptied 7 years ago. With a transfer notation to C, Turner Auto Enterprises, Clay's first failed business. That night, unable to sleep, I dig through old emails. In a message dated 5 years ago, when Dad first mentioned his estate planning, I find it, "Don't worry about the details, Kira. Everything will be split equally among my children. That's always been my plan." As I sit alone in that guest room, staring at the medical bills piling up beside me, I wonder, should I confront my father immediately about his broken promise, or quietly consult a lawyer first? Direct confrontation might preserve our relationship, but legal preparation might protect what little I had left. What would you do when the person you sacrificed everything for betrays your trust? 2 days later, The kitchen timer dings as I pull Dad's medications from the cabinet. Clay appears at my elbow, his presence unexpected. "I got this, sis," he says, taking the pill organizer from my hands. "Been watching how you do it. Figure I should learn since I'll be the one taking care of Mom when Dad's gone." I step back, the incision on my side throbbing. Gone? His numbers are improving. Sure, but long term? We both know this is borrowed time. Clay arranges the pills with exaggerated care, stealing glances at Mom to ensure she notices his performance. Later, Dad waves me into his study where spreadsheets cover his desk. "Kira, honey, I need you to sit with Clay and explain the family finances. You're so good with numbers, and he'll need to understand this stuff." "Why can't you show him?" I ask, shifting uncomfortably in the chair. Dad's eyes narrow slightly. "Because I'm recovering from major surgery." I swallow my retort. So am I. The front door slams, and Amanda bursts in, waving a grainy black and white image. "It worked! 8 weeks along." She thrusts the ultrasound photo at Dad. "The fertility doctor said the stress reduction after your transplant made all the difference. Your generosity gave us this miracle." Dad beams, clutching the image. No one mentions my generosity. That evening, I spot Dad's car keys on the hook by the door, the hook that's held them for 20 years. "Dad, you need me to drive you somewhere tomorrow?" "Oh, I signed the Buick over to Clay last week," he says without looking up from his newspaper. "Makes things simpler." The revelation burns worse than my incision. Morning brings pain that radiates from my side through my entire body. The transplant coordinator warned about possible complications, but I didn't expect this constant grinding ache. The prescription bottle sits empty on my nightstand. Refills require a trip to the clinic I can't afford. My phone buzzes with an email from my landlord in Denver. "Per our conversation, your lease termination is confirmed effective immediately. Another monthly expense eliminated out of necessity." My apartment of 5 years, gone. I check my bank balance, $872.13. 3 weeks ago, it was close to $20,000. Between unpaid leave, medical costs, and helping with Dad's home care supplies, my savings have evaporated like morning dew. My phone rings my boss's number. "Kira, we've held your position as long as we could," he says, his voice strained with corporate politeness. "If you can't return by the end of next week, we'll need to offer your position to someone else." "I understand," I say. Though I don't. Not really. How could everything collapse so quickly? The next morning, my phone rings again. I answer mechanically, expecting more bad news. "Miss Turner? This is Nurse Marlene from the transplant center. Just checking in on you." Her voice is warm, genuine. "How's that incision healing?" I find myself telling her everything. The pain, the financial strain, the family dynamics. "Donors often face unexpected challenges," she says quietly. "Remember, your health matters too." For the first time in weeks, I feel genuinely seen. That afternoon, I gather my medical bills and knock on Dad's study door. He sits in his leather chair, looking healthier than I've seen him in months. My kidney is serving him well. "Dad, I need to talk about these." I place the stack of papers on his desk. My insurance didn't cover everything. I'm looking at almost $40,000 in medical costs. He glances at the top bill, then pushes the stack aside. "What do you expect me to do about it?" "Help me. Like you're helping Clay and Amanda." His face hardens. "I gave you life, and now you're keeping score when I need help?" The words hit like a physical blow. "And I gave you mine back. I just didn't realize it came with conditions." "You've always been the successful one," he says, defensive now. "Full scholarship, good job. You didn't need my help like they do." Understanding washes over me like cold water. "You value me less because I'm independent." That's ridiculous. Is it? Clay fails, you rescue him. Amanda wants a baby, you fund treatments. I succeed, and you. What? Take it as permission to give everything to them? Dad's silence confirms what I never wanted to believe. "I was never the golden child," I whisper. "I was just the reliable one." That night, my phone rings again. "Nurse Marlene. I spoke with some colleagues. There's a donor advocacy group that might be able to help with your situation." The next day, an email arrives from my former team lead. "Heard what happened. Got a spare room in Denver if you need a place to land." These strangers show more concern than my blood relatives. I begin researching my legal options, discovering donor protection statutes I never knew existed. 3 days later, I call Mr. Prentice, the family's longtime lawyer. I need advice about my father's estate planning, I say carefully. There's a long pause. I've been meaning to call you, Kira. Some of these recent changes troubled me. Hope flickers, the first I've felt in weeks. The following morning, my phone buzzes with a text. You need to come to my office tomorrow. There's more you should know. I close my eyes, gathering strength for what comes next. The scar on my side pulls tight, a permanent reminder of what I've given and what I won't give up again. The next day, the oak-paneled office of Mr. Prentice smells of leather-bound books and decades of family secrets. Sunlight streams through Venetian blinds, casting striped shadows across his desk as he slides several documents toward me. Your father's been quite busy, he says, adjusting his reading glasses. These property transfers were backdated to appear as if they happened before your surgery. My stomach tightens. Backdated? That's potentially fraudulent, Mr. Prentice finishes, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years of legal practice. Frank transferred the vacation cabin to Clay in March, but the paperwork shows January. I pull a folder from my bag, every check I've written to my parents over the years, meticulously organized by date. College graduation, $5,000, toward their mortgage when Dad lost his job. 3 years ago, $8,000 for Mom's hip replacement when their insurance denied coverage. Last Christmas, $3,000 for repairs on the cabin that now belongs to Clay. Mr. Prentice examines my documentation, nodding slowly. There are precedents? He says, tapping his pen against a legal text. In Wisconsin, a donor sued her brother after he refused to cover her medical expenses, despite a verbal agreement. The court ruled in her favor. And in California, I add, sliding over a printout from my research. A donor was granted financial protection when the recipient attempted to sell jointly owned property immediately after the transplant. Mr. Prentice removes his glasses, his expression grave. I recommend filing for a temporary injunction. We need to freeze all asset transfers until we sort this out. The legal papers feel heavy in my hands as I sign them, but my heart is lighter than it's been in weeks. My phone rings that evening as I pack my belongings from the guest room. Amanda's name flashes on the screen. How could you do this to us? She sobs when I answer. Dad's devastated. You're destroying our family. I didn't destroy anything, Amanda, I say, continuing to fold my clothes with one hand. Dad made these choices. He gave you life. She wails, her voice rising to that familiar pitch that always worked on our parents. And I gave him back his. I counter. That doesn't mean I sign away my future. The line goes silent for a moment before she speaks again, her voice suddenly controlled. Clay says he'll contest your original donation consent if you don't drop this. He says you were coerced. A laugh escapes me, bitter and surprised. He's claiming I was coerced into donating? That's literally strengthening my case. Tell Clay thanks for the legal ammunition. I hang up as my phone chimes with a text from an unknown number. It's from Frank's transplant physician. Miss Turner, I've been made aware of the situation regarding your donation. I've filed an ethics complaint with the hospital board. This is unacceptable treatment of a living donor. As I finish packing, I consider Mr. Prentice's question from earlier. Do you want to fight for your full inheritance, or just recover your medical expenses? The question haunts me. Would seeking everything I was promised be justice, or would covering only my actual losses allow me to walk away with my dignity intact? My phone rings again the next morning. It's Diana from the National Living Donor Advocacy Network. We'd like to provide pro bono legal support, she says. Your case could help establish stronger protections for donors nationwide. I thank her, scribbling notes while balancing my coffee cup. The doorbell rings, and I open it to find Nurse Marlene standing on the porch, her scrubs wrinkled from a night shift. I've requested my days off to testify, she says without preamble. The hospital has records of our pre-donation counseling sessions where I specifically warned your father about his responsibility to support your recovery. My former boss calls that afternoon. Listen, Kira, I can't hold your position, but we have some consulting work you could do remotely during your recovery. Coding you can do from anywhere while this legal mess sorts itself out. For the first time in weeks, the crushing weight on my chest begins to lift. I'm not alone in this fight. The judge's decision arrives by courier the next day. Temporary injunction granted. All asset transfers frozen pending further investigation. My phone buzzes with a text from Amanda just after sunset. Did you know about Dad not covering your medical bills? I swear I didn't. I stare at her message, unsure what to believe. Before I can respond, another text arrives from Mr. Prentice. Frank's church friends are asking questions. Apparently, your side of the story is making the rounds. The final call of the day comes from a local reporter. Miss Turner, we're doing a story on organ donation ethics. Would you be willing to share your experience? I decline. Not ready for that level of exposure. But the request itself feels validating. As dusk settles over the neighborhood, Mr. Prentice confirms our court date for the preliminary hearing. I watch the house I grew up in from my rental car, seeing it clearly for the first time not as a home, but as property my father valued more than his promises to me. Tomorrow, we face a judge. Tomorrow, the family that took a piece of my body without honoring their word will answer for it. Tomorrow, I reclaim what's mine not just financially, but my sense of worth that they've chipped away at for years. I start the engine and drive away, the headlights illuminating the road ahead rather than the shadows behind. The next day, the fluorescent courthouse lights cast everyone in an unflattering pallor as Frank's lawyer approaches me in the hallway. His cologne arrives before he does, expensive and cloying. I press my back against the cool marble wall, my incision site throbbing beneath my navy blouse. Miss Turner, he says, voice pitched low. Your father wanted me to present an offer before we proceed. He extends a manila folder. Mr. Turner will cover all your medical expenses in exchange for signing a release of any inheritance claims. I take the folder but don't open it. He's using my surgery bills as leverage? The lawyer adjusts his tie. Consider the timing, Miss Turner. Your father's blood pressure has been concerning since this litigation began. I spot Clay hovering nearby, pretending to study a bulletin board. When our eyes meet, he approaches with calculated concern. You're killing Dad with all this, he whispers fiercely. The doctor says his kidney function is suffering from the stress. Interesting how his health becomes urgent when his money is threatened, I reply, surprised by my steady voice. Amanda appears from the restroom, eyes red-rimmed, cradling something against her chest. She unfolds a small square of paper and thrusts it toward me. Your niece? She says, pointing to the grainy ultrasound image. She'll never know her aunt if you do this. Is that what you want? To be a stranger to your own family? I stare at the fuzzy image. 6 months ago, this tactic would have worked. The old Kira would have folded her papers, apologized, and returned to being the reliable backbone everyone took for granted. Court will reconvene in 5 minutes, the bailiff calls from the doorway. Inside the courtroom, I sit alone at my table while my family clusters together across the aisle. The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses perched low on her nose, reviews documents before looking up. We'll hear from the petitioner, she says, nodding toward me. I rise, my knees surprisingly steady. Mr. Prentice stands beside me as I place my evidence on the projector. The first image appears on the screen, a spreadsheet documenting 20 years of financial contributions to my family. When Clay's auto shop failed in 2019, I provided $32,000 to prevent foreclosure on my parents' home, which had been used as collateral. I click to the next slide. When Amanda needed emergency surgery in 2021, I covered her deductible and lost wages. Frank shifts uncomfortably in his seat as I methodically present each instance where I'd served as the family safety net. My father won't meet my eyes. The next slides show my medical records, the surgical complications, the chronic pain, the medication regimen I'll likely need for years. This is my new reality. I explain, voice unwavering. A reality I accepted willingly because I believed family meant something. I click forward to emails from Frank, dated just before and after the surgery. Dad, I'm worried about taking so much unpaid leave. What about my apartment in Denver? His reply glows on the screen. Don't worry about money, sweetheart. Everything I have will be split equally among my children. We'll make sure you're taken care of. I turn to face him directly. I didn't donate my kidney to buy his love. I donated because I loved him unconditionally, something he never did for me. Aw. The courtroom falls silent. Even the court reporter pauses. Judge Winters removes her glasses. Mr. Turner, would you care to respond to your daughter's evidence? Frank stands slowly, looking suddenly frail in his too large suit. Your Honor, Kira has always been independent, strong, not like her siblings. So you're punishing her for her self-sufficiency? The judge asks. Not punishing, Frank protests. She's always been fine on her own. That's right, Clay interrupts, standing. And we made these arrangements about the will before her surgery anyway. Ask her lawyer, he knew. Mr. Prentice straightens. Your Honor, if Mr. Turner is claiming these arrangements predated the surgery, I have documentation proving otherwise. The will changes were made precisely 3 days after Miss Turner was confirmed as a match. The judge's expression hardens. The timing suggests the promise of inheritance was used to secure a potentially life-saving organ donation, followed by an immediate reversal once the donation was complete. She shuffles through papers, then looks up. The court finds troubling evidence of bad faith negotiation with someone who gave a literal piece of herself. The temporary freeze on all assets will continue, and I'm ordering a forensic accounting of the family estate dating back 5 years. For the first time, something flickers across Frank's face, not anger or resentment, but recognition. The smallest acknowledgement of what he's done. We will reconvene after the accounting is complete, Judge Winters concludes, banging her gavel. As we file out, Frank suddenly clutches his chest, his face ashen. Clay catches him before he falls. Amanda screams for help. Emergency personnel arrive with remarkable speed. As they wheel Frank toward the exit, Amanda grabs my arm. Please, she begs, tears streaming down her face. Come to the hospital. He needs you. I gently remove her hand from my arm. I already gave him what he needed to survive. The words taste strange in my mouth, not bitter as I expected, but oddly clean, like fresh water. I watch as they rush Frank through the doors, oxygen mask covering his face. Clay follows, shooting a venomous glance over his shoulder. I turn away and walk in the opposite direction, toward the parking lot. The autumn air fills my lungs as I step outside. For the first time in months, I breathe without the weight of obligation crushing my chest. I don't look back at the hospital in the distance. I've spent enough of my life looking back. Morning light streams through my Denver apartment windows, catching dust motes that dance like tiny companions. I pause at my desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard as I finish an email to a transplant support coordinator, 6 months since the court battle, and my phone no longer sends me into a panic when it rings. I glance at my wall calendar, adorned with colorful markers: therapy on Tuesdays, donor support group on Thursdays, coffee with Marlene when she visits from Springfield. The neat rows of appointments feel like stepping stones across a river I've already crossed. My hand drifts to my side, tracing the surgical scar through my cotton shirt. It's faded now, a silver line instead of an angry red slash, just like my sense of obligation to the Turners. The job at the transplant advocacy nonprofit pays less than software engineering, but every time I help revise a consent form or speak with a potential donor, something broken inside me mends a little more. My phone lights up, vibrating against the desk. Unknown number, 2:14 a.m. displayed on the caller's end. My breath catches for just a moment before I answer. Hello? Is this Kira Turner? The woman's voice trembles. The donor advocate hotline gave me your number. My brother needs a kidney, and my parents are pressuring me to donate. But they've already cut me out of their will, and I don't know what to do. And... Take a breath, I say, keeping my voice gentle. I understand exactly what you're going through. I listen as her story tumbles out a mirror of my past, different only in the details. I can help you navigate this. I tell her when she finally pauses. But remember, I can support you without diminishing myself. That's something I had to learn the hard way. A shaky exhale filters through the phone. You're the first person who's actually listened instead of telling me what I should do. That's what chosen family does, I reply. Later that evening, my apartment fills with laughter. Nurse Marlene arranges takeout containers on my coffee table, while Javier, my lawyer friend, argues good-naturedly with Delia from the support group about baseball. Marlene raises her glass. To chosen family, the ones who see our scars and still think we're whole. We clink glasses as Javier presents me with a wrapped package. Inside is a framed copy of the donor protection legislation I helped draft testimony for. My fingertips trace the embossed legal text, remembering the committee hearing where I'd spoken my truth. This is just the beginning, Delia says, squeezing my shoulder. The next morning, I open an email containing the final settlement notification. Medical bills covered, plus 1/3 of my father's estate, exactly what the will promised before his betrayal. Beside it sits another email. Acceptance into a graduate program in medical ethics. A letter arrived yesterday from a distant cousin who'd watched the family drama unfold. Your stand changed things for all of us, she wrote. No one talks about family obligation the same way anymore. I take the only photo of my father I've kept him, teaching me to fish when I was 10, before disappointment had calcified into expectation, and place it on my bookshelf. Not front and center, just one memory among many. As I placed that single photo on my shelf, I wondered if real family is defined by blood or by actions. Should I leave the door open for reconciliation someday, or was closing that chapter completely the healthiest path forward? What would you do when healing yourself means walking away from those who should have protected you?